First, for those people who don't know who these two people are, before I get into this controversy surrounding them, let me give you a little background on both Stephen A. Smith and Jason Whitlock. Stephen A. Smith, he was born October 14th, 1967, in the Bronx, New York, graduated from Winston-Salem State University with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Mass Communication. Started his career with Winston-Salem Journal, the Greensboro News and Record, and the New York Daily News. Became a general sports columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer in 1994. He started his television career on CNN SI in 1999, hosted a daily hour-long show on ESPN called Quite Frankly with Stephen A. Smith from August 2005 to January 2007. He's the featured commentator and executive producer of ESPN's First Take, an analyst on NBA Countdown, and a host of NBA in Stephen A's World. That's Stephen A. Smith. Jason Whitlock, he was born April 27th, 1967, in Indianapolis, Indiana. He played Division I college football at Ball State as an offensive lineman. Started his career part-time for the Herald Times in Bloomington, Indiana. His first full-time job was a reporter for the Charlotte Observer. He joined the Ann Arbor News in 1992 and spent 2 years covering the University of Michigan. Hired by the Kansas City Star in 1994. Worked for ESPN in 2002, writing a weekly column for ESPN.com's Page 2, left ESPN for AOL Sports in 2006, returned to Fox Sports as a columnist and an on-air personality in October 2015. Currently, he hosts a program for the conservative media company Blaze Media titled Fearless with Jason Whitlock. Okay. Remember the whole first segment when I was talking about Uncle Tom? Think about the meaning of it now. Think about the meaning of it originally. And now I've given you a background of Jason Whitlock and Stephen A. Smith. There's an important note that I purposely left out in Jason Whitlock's career because I'm going to tackle it in a few minutes. But let's give a really good rundown of Jason Whitlock's career, because a lot of people kind of know who Stephen A. Smith is. He's a very visible person. He's also been on a character on General Hospital. He's all over the internet and television. So if you know anything about sports, you know who Stephen A. Smith is. Jason Whitlock is another sports commentator, writer that you might not know about, but he was given a very, very important assignment by ESPN years ago, and it didn't really go that well. It went left. So he was the executive producer, is the editor, the main editor of the Undefeated. And he was hired to be the founding editor of the Undefeated, a website that focuses on the intersection of race and sports. This was a long time ago. This was in like the 2010s. Think about that for a second. He's a black writer. Stephen A. Smith is a black writer. I didn't point that out in the beginning. For those people that don't know, they're both black writers. And he was giving the position of the founding editor of the Undefeated, and that was a website that specifically focused on the intersection of race and sports. Yes, and so I'm gonna dig into this a little bit more, but he made some remarks while he was the editor at the Undefeated. And some of his remarks included his suggestion that some black people are more comfortable working for a white person than a black person. And he said that if anybody had an issue taking orders from a black person, speaking to the other black writers that had an issue working for him, that he would hire a white person that could give them orders, because he said that some black people have an issue with taking orders from black people and that they really would only take orders from white people. This is one of his comments that he made, okay? Certain writers, prominent black writers, refused to work with them on the Undefeated. Prominent black writers like Jamel Hill, Howard Bryant, Chris Broussard, and then Stephen A. Smith. Now, When I give you those names, if you're not familiar with those names, that's okay, because maybe you don't pay attention to sports, but they are highly influential Black people, Black writers in the space of sports writing, sports commentary. They are the who's who. If there was a Mount Rushmore of Black sports writers currently, three of these four people would be on it. The only other person that I would put on there would be Bomani Jones, and I don't really know who I'm going to take off, right? So let's just say top five, not even a Mount Rushmore. It would be those four and then Bomani Jones. And they all refused to work with Jason Whitlock on the Undefeated. But Jason Whitlock has had some other controversies. Remember I said that he's on a conservative media platform right now called Blaze Media. That's his, and part of that is because some of his statements in the past have been, he's made comments about women's sports, including his views on the women's right to vote, the lack of interest in women's sports, women in sports broadcasting, and the U.S. soccer team. But what exactly did he say? His views on women's right to votes. Whitlock suggested that women, who he believes have the greatest responsibilities as mothers and nurturers, must not necessarily be those who should help govern societies. He defended life before suffrage, arguing that the vote used to represent the family and that there was only a need for one vote per household. So he doesn't believe that women should have the right to vote. Whitlock stated that women's sports do not suffer from a lack of support, but rather from a lack of interest. And he argued that disparity in interest between men's and women's sports is directly tied to inherent physical and mental differences between men and women. Okay, let me break that down for you. He says that the only reason why people don't really watch women's sports is because men can play sports and women can't. Now I'm paraphrasing here, but you could see from his comments that that's pretty much what he's saying, right? Once again, these are all Jason Whitlock statements, not Stephen A. Smith. Jason Whitlock. Jason Whitlock has been criticized for his comments about women in sports broadcasting. He was accused of stirring up anger over the presence of women on SportsCenter. So he believes that basically, once again, I'm paraphrasing, women should be barefoot, pregnant, stay at home, and don't do, quote unquote, what he considers man jobs. Very misogynistic, okay? He also expressed that he finds it to be unpatriotic to root for the U.S. women's national team during the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia. He described them as an unlikable group of players who hate America. Now you kind of see where all this is going as far as why he's on a conservative media outlet. I have to remind you yet again, the reason why I'm bringing all this up, he's a Black man, okay? So not only is he a misogynist, but he also talks down against his people. There's been repeated instances with his sports commentary where he's talked down about Black people, saying Black people aren't smart enough to be quarterback. All the white conservative talking points about Black people, he backs up. He says them himself, okay? He says the reason why he was let go at ESPN, this is his claim, that the real reason why he was fired by ESPN is because they don't agree with his masculine representation, that they only wanted castrated men. And so because he's so masculine, because he's such a man's man, they had to let him go. It couldn't have been the fact that nobody wanted to work with him. If you like that clip, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to catch up on all of our latest content. Don't forget to hit the notification button when you do subscribe so you can get updated every time we release content. We release content every day, whether it's an actual show or clips from the shows. So go ahead and subscribe, like, comment. Also, don't forget our Patreon page where you can find our Talking Straight-ish and After Hours Uncensored episodes. That's patreon.com/unsolicited perspectives. But once again, thank you again for listening to Unsolicited Perspectives. I'm your host, Bruce Anthony, and I'm going to catch you next time. I'll holla.